What's up, Eggy Wegg Nation? Today we're doing Apocalypse Now. As always, I'm joined by my very British co-host, Busking for Blem, aka Henry.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I just love the smell of eggs in the morning, to be honest.
I just love the smell of Eggy Wegs in the morning.
Fucking yeah, this is my suggestion. Blem also
Smells
wanted to do
like
this one,
smells
but
like
swag.
God damn it, I couldn't think of anything. Well, something Clockwork Orange
but
related, not no.
but yeah, as I was saying, this is my pick. Henry also suggested this one a while back,
Yeah.
so we just decided it'd be a good idea to do it anyway.
Smells like
Um,
ultra violence.
smells like eggy wags.
Eggy Wegs.
So yeah, Apocalypse Now, pretty cool movie.
Yeah, it's like, it's pretty like up
It's all
there,
right.
I'd say.
It's all right.
It's alright,
Directed
yeah.
by Francis Ford Coppola, same guy who directed this little movie called The Godfather. I don't know if you guys know about that one.
I think he's
Pretty
actually a
underground.
lot more well known for directing Rumblefish, actually. I think
Yep.
that's way more well known than the
Rumble.
Godfather films. Who knows
Is
about
it
the
actually called
Godfather?
Rumblefish?
Yeah,
Or is it
there's a film
Rumble?
called Rumblefish
Wow,
he made in
that's
the
awesome.
80s. Rumblefish. I actually want to see it at some point. It looks cool. Yeah, Rumblefish,
Um,
1983. Francis Ford
as we all
Coppola.
know, yeah. Other than that classic, The Rumblefish, The Godfather, kind of sucks. But this
Yeah.
movie is awesome. So that's what we're gonna talk
Say
about
that,
today.
yeah.
So basic, just rundown of what Apocalypse Now is. It's a war movie, and you know how much we love those.
Mm.
Um, Basically, it takes place in the Vietnamese War, and it follows this guy named Willard. He's like this army general with PTSD, and he's taken back into the I can't speak Vietnam War to look for this guy called Colonel Kurtz, who's basically this army captain who's gone insane, as the U.S. Army puts it, and has gone rogue. He's gauging like guerrilla wars against the Vietnamese people for like without orders, and so the U.S. his sergeants are basically saying he's gone insane, and Willard's mission is to basically track Kurtz down and murder him. So that's sort of the whole plot of the movie. This movie's plot, I've heard people say that they get kind of bored during it because of the structure, because it is sort of like non-traditional in the way it is. Like it's pretty
Yeah.
slow.
It's like
Uh,
the first act is like an hour. It's like 2 hours long, basically. And
yeah,
it's like, you know,
it's very
it's like
slow building.
there's the journey and then the end.
Yeah, exactly. And it is kind of like a the characters do sort of like just like end up in random scenarios, and like there is a reason for that. It is sort of a like critique on like the meaninglessness of the Vietnam War, and
Mm.
yeah. So a lot of the scenarios are kind of it does like it might seem sort of random, but it all does come together in a very interesting way.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the time that kind of structure can make a film seem kind of boring, but I really feel like this I mean the film does more than enough to keep like it interesting without having a structure with just these like amazing like set
Yeah,
pieces, like amazing like just filmmaking in general and writing and
yeah.
yeah, and atmosphere in general is like pitch perfect.
Oh yeah, the atmosphere in this film's fucking amazing. Like when we talk about films with great atmosphere, like fucking 2001 and like Stalker, I think this movie's like right up there with like the goats. Honestly, it's like so fucking incredible.
Mm. But yeah, I'd say yeah, those are probably like the big three, I'd say, in terms of atmosphere.
It's amazing. You can
Mm.
like they really put the budget like to good fucking use.
Yeah,
Honestly.
although I haven't seen the Blade Runner films, to be fair.
Oh
So,
yeah, those two. I've seen the original, and yeah, I'd also put that in the conversation.
so the production, it was filmed in Thailand. It was
Bruh.
supposed to be, it was supposed to take 5 months to film, but it ended up taking 16, which is a lot
Mm-hmm.
longer than was originally planned. It was an absolute nightmare production. Tons of injuries happened. Coppola wanted to fucking um shoot himself,
Yeah.
probably.
Bro was
Um,
going through it
he
the
was
whole
going
time.
through it, and he thought he was making a disaster. Um, so yeah, good
Poor
for him.
guy.
It turned out well then. Um,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
especially not only that, not only did it just go through like a massive production hell, but also um, it was an idea for ages. It was first thought of in like the 60s, and it was originally going to
Mm.
be. I mean, Francis Ford Coppola, he was always involved, but it was originally going to be George Lucas's like film. It was going to be his second film because Apocalypse Now, the screenplay was based on a book called Heart of Darkness, which is not about the Vietnam War. It was written way like years before.
Yeah.
But George Lucas wanted to adapt the script into like a mockumentary type film. It was going to be filmed in black
Mm-hmm.
and white on like 16 millimeter film, which is like I guess it's like it's not quite 8 millimeter, which was what I think, which was what like the quality of like home recordings and stuff,
Yeah.
like from
Yeah.
back in the day, but it was like obviously way lower quality than like the 30 and 35 and like 70 mil of like
Mm-hmm.
big like studio movies. And
Yeah.
so it was going to be like a mockumentary kind of thing about the Vietnam War, and then it ended up not happening. And eventually the script would just float around, get rewrites and stuff, and Coppola ended up doing it after the two Godfather films. And since George Lucas wanted to make the film anyway, but couldn't because it was now Coppola's film. He ended up sort of rewriting it into um, a script about Flash Gordon, and then when he couldn't do that, he made his own thing and made um, you might have heard of it. It's called Star Wars.
No
Yeah.
way.
So yeah, um, yeah, Star Wars is basically like it was like originally a script for a Vietnam film from the perspective of the Vietnamese. So if you're like one of those assholes who's like, well, why are they making Star Wars political? Um, yeah,
It's because it is.
the bad
Dumbass.
guys in the original are literally based on America. So like,
Get fucked, Star
shut
Wars
up,
fans.
dumbass. You know nothing about your favorite franchise.
Fuck you. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it had a pretty like it was in the works for a while. Like the script was the first draft of the script was done in like the 60s, so and the film came out in
Yeah.
79, so
Yeah, Francis Ford Coppola really like I think he really did like love the idea cuz he like waited so long. He went through all this shit just to get the movie like bring it into fruition. And I think it really does show in the final product considering like how like well crafted and like amazing it is.
yeah. And
He really did care about it a lot.
what's funny is that the reason why it's such like a massive production, one of the reasons why was because Coppola just wanted to fund like smaller films, smaller, like more
Mhm.
niche, like kind of indie films that he wanted to make. And so he was like, all right, you know, he already wanted to make Apocalypse Now, but then he was like, okay, I'll make this massive action spectacle, make a shit ton of money, um, and I can fund my little indie films. And I think what he does now is that he just uses his like his other like companies and stuff. He's got like a wine company that he uses to fund his films and
Oh,
stuff.
really?
Yeah. He makes money through like a quite a few like avenues, I think.
That's
But yeah,
interesting.
back then he wanted to fund some smaller projects, and then Apocalypse Now got way out of hand. So
Pretty very quickly.
yeah,
Yeah. Fucking I'm pretty sure Francis Ford Coppola couldn't have imagined the fucking shithole he was getting into starting out the project. I mean, it just turned into something like way bigger than he imagined, I'm guessing. Fucking fucking there was so much shit he had to worry about. Like for one, like all the helicopters they use in the film, I'm pretty sure were used during like an actual war, which is fucking crazy. That was part of the reason for him choosing like Thailand to film and also the Philippines, because it's like they needed to find a country that would actually allow them to use like their military helicopters, and they were one of the only ones.
Yeah, I said it was shot in Thailand before. I got confused. I'm pretty sure it was the
Oh, the
Philippines.
Philippines.
I'm pretty
Okay,
sure it
okay.
was. I think I just got it wrong. Um,
Oh, that's all good.
uh, but yeah, I'm pretty sure no, the helicopters were borrowed from the Filipino government, and they like frequently would like take away helicopters from production for like a war
Yeah.
that they were fighting, and it really like pissed off Coppola because they would say, "All right, we need to take away like two helicopters," and then they would like show up and take away five.
Yeah. It's pretty funny how Coppola was like making this war movie during like an actual fucking war that
Yeah.
was like happening. It's pretty
Yeah.
funny.
When it like the reason why it took one of the reasons it took so long for Apocalypse Now to even like end up in production was because it was conceived when the Vietnam War was like still going, and
Hmm.
no studio wanted to touch it. They could only make it after the war had ended.
Yeah. So that's like just like another thing that added on to like the
Yeah,
bullshit. And also I didn't like look too deep into this admittedly, but I'm pretty sure there was like a hurricane or like a typhoon that was happening during filming,
yeah,
which kind of just fucked things over as well. So really Francis Ford Coppola was just like the unluckiest motherfucker
yeah.
involved in this, honestly.
Yeah, I think people were warning him, "Oh no, you can't do it. You can't do it. It's gonna be rainy season." And then he just said, "Fuck it. We're gonna. It's gonna be a rain picture." I think he said.
We're gonna make movie about rain.
We're going to make a movie about the rain.
Movie.
No,
Yes, yes,
what?
finally
No
good war
CGI
movie
in
about
movie?
rain.
I do not want to watch movie about rain.
The first good movie about rain.
Yeah. Both films about rain came out in the same year.
That's fucking
What a goated
crazy.
year for films.
Yep. Stalker
Joker and
and
Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Gotta save the Stalker discussion for a future
Yes,
episode, though.
yes, Coppola, you make movie about a men in boat. Thank you. Better than shit cube dick.
To be fair, this is Tarkovsky probably would like this movie. This is like one of the artsiest war movies that I've seen.
Yeah.
Maybe like
It's
the
it's
artsiest.
really artsy considering how fucking huge the scale is. It's like surprisingly like artsy.
Yeah. It's not like super accessible.
It's a film
It's
we're
weird.
probably never gonna get ever again. Like
Oh yeah, I
just
doubt it
like an art film on this scale. And to be fair, it is
for sure.
like there are a lot of parts of the film that would be enjoyable for just like general audiences. Like especially that whole Ride of the Valkyries like scene.
Yeah. People do I think people do take like a certain message from that scene that it's like glorifying the Americans. Personally, I think it's fucking like terrifying, and I wouldn't
No, it
think that like at
is.
all. But I could see how like maybe general audiences would like see that as like, oh my
Yeah.
god, the Americans are fucking awesome,
Yeah,
sort of
general
thing.
audience be like, this is so cool. To be fair, as like scary as it is, as like a just pure spectacle, it is like incredible.
It does look awesome. Okay, I'm
It
not gonna
does
lie.
as yeah, as horrible as it is, it does
It
look
looks fucking
awesome.
cool.
It looks so cool. When like all the bombs are going off and destroying the bridge, and there's like a shot of I think it's like a Vietnamese guy like running with like a car or something as like bombs are
Yeah,
like exploding beside him with like helicopters constantly just like flying
so
through the
fucked
air.
up.
It's ridiculous.
And those Vietnamese people like in their car trying to get away over the bridge, and the bridge blows up, and they just go
Yeah.
flying into the water. It's so
Yeah,
like fucked up.
Jesus. And um one shot I love is it's like a shot of like a helicopter which is just it's going super fast and it's just sweeping across um like the whole land and it's like breathtaking.
Yeah.
It's from
I
like
don't
the
know if it
it's
was
weird, it's from the
intentional.
POV of like the helicopter.
Yeah. I don't know if it was intentional, but like the way like everything comes together, the helicopters do feel like kind of alien, especially with like
Mm.
all the sound design and like the helicopter blades like whirring and like seeing them like over the horizon and the fucking like orange sky and all the weird color grading. It looks so good. It looks so good.
Yeah, I've mentioned to you before that the film like Come and See feels like
Yeah.
it kind of feels like an alien invasion movie.
Mhm. Because you
Um,
don't see the
like for
attackers.
context, people who don't know, Come and See is just about it's about like a Russian kid who's like experiencing like his like villages being taken over by German armies in World War II. And
Hmm.
it kind of feels like an alien invasion movie, honestly, which is scary considering how realistic it is. Apocalypse
Yeah.
Now kind of feels like the inverse, where like America are like the aliens,
Yeah.
kind of.
You're seeing it in the perspective from like
It is an
the
it's
bad
literally an
guys.
apocalypse. Like,
Yeah.
it's like the end of the world.
That is like a big theme to Apocalypse Now. It's like there is no like it's a really fucked up movie. It's basically one of the main themes is that like there is no escape to like all the horror and like
Yeah.
bloodshed that's taking place in the war cuz even once the Vietnam War ends, there's going to be more wars and these soldiers are going to like forever be scarred cuz of the shit they
Mm.
went through. Like even though like the actual war like ends, the war inside of them and like all the trauma they went through like it'll stick with them forever
Yeah.
and it's just like fucking tragic.
And like despite that, something unique I think that this film captures is that America is like just even though like they ended up losing the war in the end, um, in this film especially it feels very one-sided on like America's end. Like
Yeah.
even though like most of like the crew end up dying by the end, it does feel like a lot of the time like the Americans are just absolutely like sweeping the Vietnamese.
They're sweeping.
And
Yeah.
and just because of this environment that they're put in and how it's just become their lives, and because they have such a clear advantage, it ends up with like the Americans basically like, having fun with it and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're constantly just like pissing around and like going to like Playboy shows and like smoking weed and
Yeah.
fucking doing drugs.
It really like highlights like the meaninglessness of like them even being there. Like what the fuck are they doing? Like they're not fighting for anything. They're just kind of like partying and like dropping acid
Yeah.
the whole movie. And that's like it's even more like a miracle how like despite all that the movie still manages to make you feel bad when like the American soldiers die. Cuz like also even they are like victims in this war because
Mm.
really all they want to do is like just go home, right? But like they just even if they do manage to survive the war, like I said earlier, like there is no real like escape for them because they're always going to be just scarred by these horrible things that happen to them.
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that the first like main character to die is like the teenager who is actually
Yeah.
played by a then 14-year-old Lawrence Fishburne who's like
Mhm.
way more well known for playing what's his face? The guy from The Matrix with like the glasses. The red pill blue pill
Morpheus?
guy. Yeah. Morbius, yeah.
Morpheus?
Morbius.
Yeah, he was like iconic in that movie, so to see him here at like a young age is like really cool,
Mm.
honestly.
And yeah, and the fact that he's the first to die and that that he dies while like a tape of his mother talking about him is playing. And
Oh,
it's
it's so
so
fucked.
sad.
Yeah. And all the other crew members go out in equally morbid ways.
Yeah,
Like
except for Lance, he sticks around. He's like the only one.
yeah, Lance survives till the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Where's the fucking pup? We left the fucking puppy.
Oh yeah, there is like a scene in this movie where Willard and his crew pull over this Vietnamese boat carrying a bunch of like resources and stuff like food, only food basically, and they search the boat and they just end up like
They end up burning them
murdering
down
everyone
for
on the
like
boat.
basically no reason, because like
Yeah,
the woman on the boat wanted to protect like the puppy,
they get jump scared. Yeah, that's literally it.
and then they
And
just
then
take
like
the puppy with them and end up losing it.
yeah, there is like one person on the boat who actually like survives. And then Willard just shoots her because he's basically like, okay, well, why are we drawing the line here? Like we already like massacred like all these people for no good reason. We might as well just like put her out of her misery. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
really
she was
fucked up.
dying anyway.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. Like even though we see Willard at the beginning of the movie basically like tweaking in his fucking bedroom and like
Yeah,
punching a
which
mirror and
was
breaking his
real, by
hand.
the way. That was
Yeah,
like Martin Sheen, who was actually like it was filmed on his birthday, and he was actually drunk and
he was just
just
drunk.
told, you know, those memes where it's like, oh, this wasn't part of the script. They just filmed so and so.
It's like that, but
Those like
real.
terrible letterbox reviews, but like it
Yeah.
actually happened where they
He was
just
just getting
filmed him
fucking
tweaking,
wasted.
and then he actually punched the mirror and actually like split open his thumb, and so all that
Yeah,
blood and shit was real, and they just kept
Francis Ford
filming.
Coppola just like yeah, he just walked in and he's like, that's fucking awesome. I need this in my
Yeah,
movie.
they were like, one of the people on crew was like, "Oh, Jimmy, stop filming," and then one of the others was like, "No, no, 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 keep going, keep going. Don't, no, we can't. We'll get like a get an ambulance later. Just keep going," and they
And
did.
it's actually like one of the best scenes in the movie.
Yeah,
It's like awesome.
it's like
But yeah,
it kind of feels like at points, just from the production, how horrible the production was. It kind of just feels like one of those films where it just ended up like amazing by accident.
yeah, yeah, they were just like for certain scenes, I guess they were fucking around and just
Yeah,
decided to put in the movie, and it
yeah,
works really well.
yeah. That feeling when you just fucking around and accidentally make a masterpiece.
Goated performance from Martin Sheen, actually.
Mm. Yeah, great performance. His voice works so well.
That is one of the ASMR Coco Melon aspects of this movie. His
True.
voice is like it literally is one of those like ASMR videos, and
Yeah.
also and the fact he's like debatably not even the like best performance. He doesn't even give like the best performance in the movie.
We'll
That's
get to
like
that though.
crazy. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But like yeah, as I was trying to say earlier, it is kind of ironic how Willard, this like PTSD stricken like soldier who's like tweaking at the beginning of the movie, is arguably like one of the most sane people in the film, especially near the end where he basically like he had the opportunity to like completely like succumb to madness basically when he kills Kurtz and is like offered to be like the new leader of these like people, but he just decides not to and leaves with his pal Lance.
I don't think he would
Not
be
to say
able
he's
to
perfectly
anyway.
sane, but
Like
yeah, probably not.
Kurtz like being the leader of these people basically wanted to die. He basically wanted Willard to kill him. And then I think Willard was just too used to the war anyway. He wouldn't be able to stay
Yeah,
there. He would just have to like go back and do whatever like
he
they
was just
told
like fuck it, we ball.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah. Fuck it, mission's done.
he
Get
basically
back
had,
to
yeah,
base.
that is true. He didn't have many other options like in the first place, and like yeah, it's clear from the beginning that like he's not really planning on doing anything else other than just fighting in the war. So
Yeah. Okay, so film looked fucking so good.
yes,
Amazingly shot
amazing.
film. Um, it's like huge and it's like huge and like the spectacle is like absolutely insane while also being like incredibly well shot and having that like I don't know, that kind of like art. It's hard to explain, but like an artsy look to it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The way it's
It's
edited and everything, like it does like add to that feel.
it's
The whole thing of
definitely
like
very
images,
heightened.
yeah. The thing with like images being like superimposed on top of each other and like cut together,
Oh, I
especially like
love that
in the
stuff.
first like the
Like
beginning scene.
Someone must have complimented Coppola on that. On that part in The Godfather Part 1 where like Vito's mustache turns into a tree and they're like that was so cool.
Iconic.
And then Coppola just like
Just
tripled
did that
down
for a
for
whole
this
movie,
film. Yeah, and it looks so amazing.
for sure.
The fades are just like it's kind it's so weird to like compliment a movie's fades, but they really are amazing.
Yeah, yeah, they add a lot to it. It does
Yeah.
kind of add to like this surreal feeling that Apocalypse Now has, and that's like a very intentional thing. Like the cinematographer for Apocalypse Now and Francis Ford Coppola took a lot of like inspiration from more like surrealist imagery. Like there's this one scene in the movie where Willard and Chef go out into the jungle to find mangoes, and they encounter like this tiger, and like the fucking color grading in the jungle makes it look so like beautiful and otherworldly with like all the blues,
Yeah.
and they took that from like some like Tarzan comic, I think, from like the 1930s or something.
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah, and like it actually adds so much flair to it, honestly.
Yeah, that's awesome. And they had like a
Yeah.
real tiger just like jump out, and they had, because of course they did. Um,
Brought in a real tiger.
yeah, Jesus Christ.
And funny thing, when they were moving that tiger from place to place, the pilot was actually like he was standing on the wing of the plane because he was like too nervous to actually like fly with a tiger on board because they
Yeah,
just brought
I'm
him the tiger in like a
surprised.
passenger. He was just sitting there chilling.
Yeah. And like yeah, of course like the editing is amazing. We mentioned like the how things like how all the fades are composed. But also just stuff like one part that um jumps out at me specifically is like the ending when Willard kills Kurt and it's cut with like the sacrifice of like a cow by the natives
Yeah.
and like
Oh yeah, that's
wow.
great. A lot of the
Uh,
visual imagery in this movie is like very striking.
mm. I know a lot of people, some people have like a problem with um how like the killing of like the cow for the film and like yeah, I get it. Um to be fair, like the actual like natives in like they're not they're actors, but they're not actors, they're actual like natives in like a from like a tribe and they were gonna sacrifice the cow exactly like that anyway. So they just filmed it.
Yeah,
So
they
it's
might
not
as well
like they
just film
brought
it.
out the cow to
Yeah, it
it's
was
not
already gonna
like the
get
Holy Mountain where they
sacrificed.
just explode a bunch of frogs.
Yeah,
Um even though I love that movie too. Um
it's
but
another
yeah.
one of those things where like it was gonna happen anyway, so they
Yeah.
just filmed it.
Yeah, it
So
was.
can't really complain too much about that.
Yeah. And it makes for like an incredibly like striking visual.
Apocalypse Now definitely is one of those movies where like sometimes like the style like is the substance. Where like even
Hmm.
though no dialogue is being said, it's like a lot is being conveyed just through like the visuals and
Yeah.
stuff alone. Some of the visual stuff could be served as like metaphors or like allegories for something, which is always like really cool to see, especially like in a fucking high budget movie like this one.
Yeah. Like yeah, it's like who's ever heard of like an art house like blockbuster?
Yeah,
Even
the
though
only other
I
one
don't
I can
think
think of is like
it
Blade
is
Runner.
technically a blockbuster, but you know what? You know what I mean.
Yeah, for
Blockbusters are
sure.
kind of different. It's kind of like Jaws and shit.
And Star Wars.
Star War. But
That
yeah,
doesn't
some
have any political
nope.
undertones at all.
Whoa, they put black woman in my Star War. What?
Arr,
Ah, I
arr.
was gonna mention earlier, but I forgot. What makes the pacing really, really good? I mentioned the fades from earlier. Not only are they awesome, but they are really good at making it feel like so much time has passed. I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of films have trouble like showing like time passing.
Mhm.
Like there was like a film I watched semi recently, and I know like this is like a very popular movie, but I guess I didn't really get it. It was a film called like The Searchers, and it takes place over like many years, but it didn't feel to me like years had passed. It just felt like all the events happened over a week, and all of a sudden, oh, the little girl from the
Yeah.
beginning's is like a teenager now, and it's like, oh, I had no idea
It's
all
very
that time had
sudden.
passed. Yeah, because there's nothing in the film to like show it. So like, Apocalypse Now, it does like a really like good job at like showing like the passage of time going by,
Yeah.
and really making you feel like they've just been on that boat for like like a shit
Yeah.
ton.
And it is like can be frustrating because like you can see like no progression is really being made, other than like
Mm.
the obvious fact that like yeah they're getting closer to Kurtz, but like they're not actually really doing anything other
Yeah,
than like yeah murdering people and taking acid and shit.
yeah,
But that's
murdering
about
people and yeah, killing and weed.
it. And that is another cool thing. There is like a big line drawn between the boat and like the outside world. Like there is like a very iconic line in this movie where I forget the exact like word for word, but it's basically along the lines of just never get off the boat. And you see the boat's supposed
Yeah.
to represent like this
Never
thing
get
of like
off, never
stability
get
and
off
auth.
the boat. Absolutely
Yeah.
goddamn right.
Yeah.
So
It's
hard.
supposed to represent like fucking like stability and authority, I guess, and the jungle is supposed to represent like
Yeah.
madness, basically. And Kurt stepped off the boat and he went insane.
Mm.
And fucking Chef and Willard get off the boat and they nearly die because of the tiger. So it's really interesting. That's like an example of like some of the cool visual stuff they do. That's a fucking awesome way to tell a story.
I like one parallel to like the real life production I really like is a line where Kurtz he says something along the lines of you these soldiers they're forced to like massacre innocent civilians but they're not allowed to write back on their helicopters because it's obscene. Um
Yeah.
and that kind of like I'm not sure if this is like directly based on this, but it does have a lot of parallels with the actual production of the film where they were going to get like helicopters and tanks and shit from the US Army because they're like, "Oh yeah, you can make your war film." And then they said no because because like they specified, "Oh yeah, these characters are going to be doing drugs on like the boats and helicopters and shit."
Yeah.
Like
And then they were like, "What?
that's where they draw the line. But like the killing all the like innocent like
That's awesome.
Vietnamese, nah, that's fine. That's awesome. Do that as much
You
as
have
you
to
want.
glorify our soldiers, dude. Can't
Yeah.
do weed, can't do drugs. The murder,
Woo!
that's okay though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the fucking music in this movie sounds amazing. Some of it was composed by Francis Ford Coppola's dad, who's like a flutist, I'm pretty sure, or like he's an orchestrator. And what I really like about this soundtrack is a lot like how the movie looks and feels. Even like the soundtrack sounds kind of like otherworldly and like futuristic. It does kind of add to like this whole element I really like of Apocalypse Now, where it just like sounds like fucking ASMR, and adds to this super like alien dystopian
It
quality it sort of
definitely
has.
adds to the atmosphere. It makes
Yeah,
it's so unique, the soundtrack.
I fucking
Like,
love it. And the
especially for
doors.
when it came out.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there wasn't much that sounded like that at the time when it comes
It's
to
like
like soundtracks. I mean,
all I can think of really is like Maybe I'd have to watch more films from like the 70s and 60s, but all I can think of really is like a Clockwork Orange. Um,
That I was gonna say it, the soundtrack in this movie did kind of remind me of that.
it has the kind of same effect, except Apocalypse Now kind of like triples down on it.
Yeah, I think it's like the synths that they use that sort of
Mhm.
like sound a little similar.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, the Doors, the This Is the End,
Oh,
used at
that
the beginning and the end of the
that song is
movie.
already a banger, but like the way it's used in the film is
Oh my
it
God,
might be like it might be my favorite use of like a licensed song in any film. It's so good.
it's so awesome.
It's like
And
that,
yeah,
and then Singing in the Rain and A Clockwork Orange, probably. Those are like my favorites. And Mad World and Donnie Darko, probably.
yeah,
That one's really good.
yeah. It is really cool how they just like they had the balls to use a song that says "This is the end" at the fucking beginning of their film.
It's so sick, and it just goes, "This is the end," as everything fucking blows up. And that was like B-roll. That was intended. That was shot for the Ride of the
Yeah.
Valkyrie sequence. Um,
Uh huh.
the use of Ride of the Valkyries in that scene is also like one of the best uses
Oh,
of
it's so
music
good.
in a film. It's amazing. But that was just B-roll that was shot, and it was just perfect to use for the beginning of the film.
Yeah, like a lot of stuff, they just kind of like threw it in there and like it worked
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah, it was decided like it was a last minute decision in the editing room. And it's like it's one of the most iconic parts of the film.
So much shit happened over the course of like the development of this movie that like I imagine what Coppola had it planned like looked very different to what he ended up with, like in a
Oh
good way
yeah,
though,
definitely.
because it did like fucking everything. Like I said, it did like come together really well.
So, so the I think we've already mentioned like the villain of the film, well, not villain, but like antagonist of the film, Colonel Kurtz. And he's played by uh a he's played by Marlon Brando. And oh my God, he absolutely devours the scenery. Marlon Brando's performance is like absolutely amazing.
Yeah, probably the best performance in the movie, to
Oh,
be
I'd
honest.
say so. I know his performances as like Vito in The Godfather is more iconic, but
Yeah,
I prefer his like both are great. But I prefer his performance as Kurtz. I think it's
same
fantastic.
here. He has such a presence. Not only is like the presence like largely to do with just his amazing acting skills, but also like the lighting when he's in a scene. Like
Mm.
he's always obscured by like this shadow. Even like in pics of
And
him,
yeah, his
he has
voice
this
and the way
shadow
he
around him.
talks
Oh yeah, it's
and his
sick.
dialogue, it just all everything coming together just to
That's pretty
just
funny considering like on set Marlon Brando just didn't give a fuck.
yeah, literally everyone in the filming was fucking like drunk or high or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
they were on something.
Dennis Hopper, um, Mr. Fire coming out of the monkey's head, man.
Monkey head.
Yeah, and live action Bowser. He was like the American like journalist in in the end in like the last part, and
Yeah,
it's like you can. I mean, he's great. He's great in the film. But like you can, after you know that he was like high the entire time, you can kind of see it in his performance. He does look
yeah.
like he's tweaking the
He's
entire
tweaking.
time.
I just thought it was like his performance being really good, and then you told me
Yeah,
about that. I'm like, fuck,
I think
that
it's
makes
like
perfect
both,
sense.
but you know,
Yeah, mix of both. Maybe one's like
this was
accentuating the other.
this was like Dennis Hopper's like kind of like comeback. Comeback. He wasn't really getting much work at the time, and then he was asked by Marlon Brando to come down for Apocalypse Now, and he was like, "Oh yeah, of course." And so I think he was like at the same time he was trying to like prove himself. And like
Yeah,
yeah, he's fucking great in the film. So
I think Marlon Brando and Dennis Hooper were actually beefing a little on
oh
set. I don't
really?
know over what. Yeah, Marlon Brando didn't like working with him for some reason, and like threatened to
Okay.
leave, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah, didn't like each other very much. And also Marlon Brando, his role called for him to be like emaciated basically, or like really skinny, but he just showed up and he was fucking fat, and Francis Ford
I
Coppola was
think it
like, okay,
works. Even though it doesn't make
yeah,
sense like logistically, like he would be really skinny. Although maybe not because he is like the leader of like the tribe. He probably gets like most of the food, but like
yeah,
at the same time it does just for like the character design and like the intimidation, it does
yeah,
work.
it looks cool. And also like if we're going for like him like succumbing to like basically like hedonistic like pleasures and like greed and stuff, it does kind of make sense that like he would like eat a lot of food and just
Yeah.
get like fucking fat. So I don't think it's like a bad thing. It's just different from what Coppola like intended, I guess.
Yeah, no, it still works. I actually
Mhm.
prefer it to if he was like really skinny.
Yeah. And he does look intimidating, especially with the face paint and shit. Looks fucking
Oh
sick.
God, yeah. Yeah, all the shots of like the people with face paint is so sick. Like there's the shot of Marlon Brando, um, and there's like the amazing iconic shot of Martin Sheen, Willard, like
Oh yeah.
with his face paint on, like coming out of like the swamp as the lightning strikes.
Oh my god, it's so good.
Oh my God. And yeah. And
The last 10 minutes is
and the
just like
part
so climactic.
and the part at at the part with like the bridge where Lance? Yeah, Lance has like the face paint on. And I think it's Chef is like, "What are you doing? You're looking kind of weird." He's like, "I I dropped acid far out, man." And he's just got his face paint on and he's just like staring.
Chilling in the boat.
He's just chilling,
Yeah.
like just staring in complete awe of just like all the lights and like explosions and shit. It's so cool.
And I feel like I'm on acid just watching this movie. So you already
Goddamn.
know he was in for a crazy trip, honestly.
For real.
I'm actually surprised how much Apocalypse Now grew on me, like with a rewatch though. Because I already knew I loved it. And then I just like, I watched it again like last night. I'm like, yeah, this is one of the greatest movies ever. Like,
Mm.
holy shit.
No,
It's so fucking,
it is amazing. I think it is definitely uh one of those instances where like where like once you know where it's going, it's like
yeah,
and you know what it's going for, you can like better understand. I feel like
yeah,
sometimes just knowing what a film's going for before watching it can really help. Like for
for
instance,
sure.
literally the film I watched today, I rewatched La Haine and I got on with it a lot better. Um,
Yeah,
actually knowing what it's going for,
uh,
and it
yeah,
clicked with me a lot
Apocalypse
more.
Now is one of those.
Mm.
Fucking, it also is like a pretty like, it is like a subtle movie, all things considered. There's not a lot, there's like not much dialogue that just like fucking outright tells you what the movie's about. And, a lot of the scenes are like I said, on the surface could be seen as kind of like aimless. But
Mm.
once you like you said, like know what the movie's trying to go for, it all like comes together.
Yeah.
So I think it's awesome.
So yeah, Apocalypse Now, one of the best films ever made. It's like easily in my top 10, probably my favorite war film. Yeah, obviously I'm gonna give this like 10 out of 10.
I'm happy to
Pretty
say I
easy.
agree with you, Henry. This out of Mass 9 Purgatory, I'm gonna have to give it 10
Woo!
out of 10 in the top 10. Yeah!
Yeah.
Good job, Francis Ford. You did it, buddy. So
Whoa.
happy for you.
Francis
I know
Ford
you care so much.
Francis Ford Flopper. Flopper.
Francis Ford Coppola if he was good
Yeah.
and funny.
Francis Ford Flopper.
Alright, Floppa lovers. As always, keep on rocking in the flop world,
Right.
and I'll see you later.
And remember to keep on flopping.